It's always nice to see like people that that join because like I feel like a lot of times it's so easy to be like, oh, well, I'll just watch the recording. So I appreciate when people come live because I've been on webinars where it's like two people and you're like, this is so awkward.
And here comes the swarm of note takers.
As they
Welcome
should.
fireflies and everybody else.
You're
We're
doing.
going to get started in about 60 seconds. There's some more participants trickling in.
What up, Chris, Marcy, Larissa? Got a lot of blooming blinds here, like that. All shout out. Also, need your blooming blinds because my husband decided it was a great idea to swing a golf club in our living room, broke three of the blinds. So great.
So now you're building a golf simulator, right?
I was like, you are so lucky if you're not sleeping with the blind pieces on your pillow.
All right. Welcome, everybody. Well, we've got just 30 minutes here, so I'm going to go ahead and get things kicked off. My name's Tim Hitchner. I'm VP of Product here at Voxie. We're a text marketing and automation platform built specifically for franchise brands. I'm joined here today by Madeleine Zook. Many of you may know who Maddie is. She's a co-founder of Catalyst with David Barr. She served as CMO and in an advisory role for numerous franchise brands, and she herself is a multi-unit, multi-brand franchisee. So I've invited Maddie today to share her perspective on this topic of being locked out of local. And then what I'm going to talk about is what it takes to unlock local SMS because franchise brands are locked out. And I'm going to talk about how to build the key. And I'm actually going to show you inside of Voxie how we make that happen. Before I do that, though, I wanted to bring Maddie in for kind of a fireside chat style Q&A. Maddie, before you answer kind of my first question here, feel free to do a quick intro and background if you'd like. What I want to kick us off with is why does local marketing work so well, and what is it that makes it work well?
Yeah, well, thank you for having me. Yeah, as many of you know, I'm kind of Zorzy and supplier. So eat, sleep, live, pillow talk, even though usually it's fighting with my husband franchising. So I think the biggest piece here, and I can't say it enough, is that franchisees just don't want to do, for the most part, and are not going to ever do enough local marketing. I've got five brands, three kids. Like I know the importance of it. I'm great friends with Heather McLeod and Mary Thompson at BNI, and I still don't attend enough BNI meetings. Like I get it. But the problem is that after COVID, we all know digital leads went up. The market, and this is something I want you guys to remember, is like market message match. The market was digital. We had to be. So the message and the match was digital, and that's how we got our leads. Well, right now the market is local. People want to shop locally. They want the relationship. And not only that, AI is pulling so severely away from all of these traffic centers, all of these kind of like big global behemoths, think Google and ChatGPT, and pulling from their profit centers, which is they're now increasing cost per leads because they pull the levers. So the baseline here is that if you are not local and creating those relationships with your customers, you're up against a beast you can't control. And for the longest time, franchisees have not been able to understand that the market changed from only being able to be digital, and that was our message, and that's how we matched, to now it's local and it means more of it's on them. And that's just hard, right? Nobody wants to get told, go out, do more yard signs, go do more work, go be more personable because it's hard. And unfortunately, that's where we're at right now.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing the insight there. I heard you you talked about the relationship aspect. I'm gonna ask about that in a minute. Before I get there though, I want to ask about autonomy and franchisees. And I want to focus this specifically on texting and texting platforms. When you think of giving franchisees autonomy over messaging, when you wear kind of your brand hat, your CMO hat, what concerns does that raise, or what fears come to mind?
So I'm a little bit on the more relaxed side when it comes to brand governance. Now, don't get me wrong, like the brand is what they buy and you need to protect it. However, I also know that dealing with systems from three all the way to 3,000 there are some things that you simply cannot control, right? And you're going to break your back trying to control them. What I look at though is what are the governance verticals that directly affect the most revenue coming in and out, right? If someone's going to go and make their own social media graphics, and I'm not talking like the logo is changed, but for, the template might not be what you like, or they used an off-brand color. The reality is not enough people are going to see that for it to destroy your brand, or to be honest, like no one is even going to see it for their location. However, when we're talking about language going out to multiple contacts, if we're talking from the marketing side where it could be cold contacts, first impression type things, this is stuff that I have to be very cognizant about and very tight with, because now this is could directly affect revenue coming in, the impression, how are they capturing lead data? Are they saying, are they reply all these different things that directly and very heavily influence whether or not someone's going to buy right away or very soon. And then if you switch to the upsides, like is this affecting the customer service, the lifetime value, all of those different things. So you have to be tighter here. However, franchisees are like children, like you can't let them eat dessert for dinner, but you also have to let them have the autonomy to make the decision. So it's that blended base of like, I need to give you your freedom to be your own person, right? If I
Hmm.
email or I text one of my clients and it's just this really flat, custom branded thing, there's nothing there, right? Maybe I want to be like, oh, by the way, tell your dog I said hi, he ran out to the van today. And if I can't do anything like that, it becomes stale. How am I supposed to create relationships like that? But if it's the wild, wild west, I can't have like maybe my manager or my tech's having a bad day and they're like, we're coming out today. Like, just hold on. Or Jesus F, we'll be right there. Like, that
Hmm.
also is too much, right? So, what are the guardrails? That's protection, but still allows for some flexibility. So, you're protected, but the franchisees feel like they have some freedom.
Yeah.
I'm super
Awesome.
long-winded, guys. So, feel free in the chat to be like, stop next. Like, we got it.
So governance, controls, but also leaving room for autonomy where appropriate. And you talked about relationships, and I kind of want to pull on that thread a little bit more. At Voxie, we support quick service restaurant brands, service brands, and we see them handle autonomy very differently. And I think that ties back to how sales, especially in the services space, home services, especially child enrichment services, those sales are built more on relationships than like the offer or the BOGO or whatever they might be selling that day. How does especially the vertical, especially your background in service brands, how does that influence the importance of autonomy when you think about what type of brand you are and how you're communicating and selling?
Yeah, so one of the more unique pieces of Catalyst in my role is like currently I have advising CMO roles in automotive, quick service, youth enrichment, health and wellness, and home services. And then I'm a franchisee in home services. So you see the different sides of this. And no matter what, the biggest thing is that I just simply cannot understand the use of a text that is one way. Like, I understand if it's in your CRM, they're already a client, and it's like, we're coming, your appointment is now, we're coming out, like, it's a do not reply. But if you are utilizing messaging to get the customer back or any sort of marketing and it's a do not reply, people want to communicate via text. Like, if I get a text from a youth soccer company, it's like, hey, now's the time for my littlest one is Zoe to sign up. Don't forget. And I'm like, oh, I'd like to sign her up. It's like, do not reply. Like, I just can't fathom that is a missed lead now, because now I'm like, now I got to go on my computer. It's a whole thing, right?
Yep.
I don't have time for that. So that's one thing. The second piece is that we all understand that unit level economics, while it's a brand wide like roll up. And the goal is for us to understand the margins and the averages and make sure it's profitable no matter, that average franchisee that David always says. The other piece of that is they're very deeply personal, and each location's unit level economics are affected by different things. Let's think weather. Some people are restricted by labor, some other people, many different things. So if there's a time in someone's life that they're like, I really need to fill these gaps in schedule. I've got too many people I hired. I simply don't want to let them go. I got to run an offer. Or another person's like, we just changed our pricing. We increased our prices. It's not a good time to run a discounted offer. Now people are not going to like that. Those are deeply personal, or I should say uniquely localized issues that you should have some understanding around. Now, I'm not against brands having these brand wide deals, but when you're talking about a one-to-one customer marketing, program such as texting, this is when you want to be a little bit more cognizant. It's the same thing when you're asking for reviews, right? I'm not going to go to someone who I just increased their prices. One of my brand, the longest brand we have is Made Pro. I'm not going to go to Nancy, who we just increased her prices by 10%, and then also say, oh, by the way, we're running a free dishwashing discount. Like, it doesn't make sense because she's going to be like, then why did you increase my price? So, those types of autonomies to allow them to understand, because if you go back to the basics, there's only three ways to grow a company, whether it's a small one location or your entire brand. It's you get more customers, you get them more frequently, or you get them paying more per service. So when you're talking about
Yeah.
something that touches all three of those, when you go back to what I said initially, if this is a very large revenue driver, especially one that it's very rare to find a channel that touches all three of them, you have to be very cognizant about how you're going to monitor and I don't know, govern that type of channel.
Yeah. Absolutely. And keeping like the channel is inherently two-way. It is as a consumer, when you're on the receiving end of the text, you want to reply. It's where you text your friends and family and coordinate
Mhm.
everything that's going on in your life typically. When you receive a text from a brand that doesn't allow you to reply, it breaks a kind of a day one assumption about how the channel should be used. Um,
Mhm.
so we'll look at that as well in the next about 15 minutes here. Last question. While you answer, I'm going to get my screen share going again here. Uh, if franchisees could run campaigns and local text marketing compliantly, but they don't need approval on every send, and there's trust that it's going to be on brand, on message, etc. What does that unlock for not only the brand but also the franchisee?
Well, like I said, this channel is so underutilized. I think right now it's either there's a common gray area with a CRM, right? There's the CRM once they become clients, and then there's some brands an abyss, and some brands have this marketing layer where it's the nurture, and then once they become a client, they go in, and some have texting through it, some have used like a constant contact or active campaign, added on texting, and it's become, one way, and then it's about the pricing and the packages. The reality is it's so underutilized because no one really understands the value, the cost structure. So if you are starting to look at texting as its own vertical and truly understand like the opt-in procedures, we're because in texting it's much stricter than email, right? And it can carry a fine of up to $500 per text if you don't have the right permissions. Now, is someone going to sue? Sure, they'll sue for anything, but I would weigh my odds on that. But assuming you're in compliance moving forward, now you can track a lot of touch points that you never had before. Think of all the emails you send and the click-through rate and the open rate. Think of that, but now it's in their hand, right? Sure, email's in their hand, but we all know that text is now more direct to the consumer than email ever was. And that is something that we just simply aren't reporting on enough. We're not utilizing enough. So if I could all of a sudden understand, well, how many texts would it take to get a a click and then get a lead and then get a customer, and for the customers that come through text, what is their lifetime value? How do I extend that so we could really make that its own section of customers and utilize that? It could be the same thing as email, same thing as people who walk through the door.
Yeah,
So I really think that there's a vertical and a need for that.
absolutely. Well, thanks for taking the time to share your thoughts, share some insight. What I'm going to transition to next is speaking to really and demonstrating how Voxie helps franchise brands do exactly that. What I'm going to start with here is the kind of four ingredients and how you build the key that unlocks local SMS. And it starts with what you just ended with there, Maddie, which is compliance. If you're going to unlock SMS at the local level, it must be TCPA compliant. It must be brand safe messaging. You have to keep the best interests of the brand top of mind. The second component is your brand voice, and we talked about that a little bit as well. When franchisees represent your brand, especially if they're doing that in mass to their local audience, they need to appropriately represent the brand, and automated enforcement of that is the best way to do it. The third piece is communication cadence. So franchisees shouldn't be permitted to over communicate and send a dozen texts a week. They're going to oversaturate their audience. They're going to cause them to opt out, which is less leads or customers that corporate can reach. And you also don't want franchisee messaging to conflict with your corporate marketing calendar. So you need to have visibility and control over what they're doing from a centralized place.
I'd also say you'd want to be careful too, because if you're utilizing, and I know you guys have a solve for this, but in general, non-Voxie related, if you're utilizing texting and all of a sudden, let's say it's one number or one system, if they opt out of texting, and then did they just opt out of their appointment reminders? Did they opt out of emergency situations and like youth enrichment if they have to call the parent? So those are some things to keep in mind as well.
Yeah. Handling marketing versus transactional consent separately is something that from a programmatic perspective, every brand should be thinking about is how do I enable my consumers to choose how they're receiving communications, not only what channels they're receiving communications on, but within that channel, what types of communications can they receive? A lot of brands are starting to roll out things like preference centers to allow consumers to be in control of types of communication per channel. And that also is a signal of how best to reach that consumer, how they want to be marketed to or communicated with. The final component here on unlocking SMS is cost and ensuring that the brand's budget can stay intact. When you start unlocking local SMS and maybe dozens, hundreds, even thousands of locations are starting to send campaigns out and text with their customers, there's a fixed cost to that. There's carrier fees involved in SMS that you don't see in email and other communication mediums. The way that Voxie likes to solve this with our customers is to enable franchisee-funded texting programs. Corporate can sponsor or provide a credit for texting for the franchisees up to a certain amount, which fixes the cost for the brand. And then anything above and beyond that can be covered by and billed to the franchisee so that there's cost sharing there. And if the franchisee does want to spend more, they're able to dip into their own local marketing budget for that. And then we'll talk about results and how we ensure that they can see where those dollars are going in just a few minutes. So with these four key components, that's how we unlock local SMS: compliance, voice, cadence, and cost. So what I'm going to do next is show you exactly how these components work inside of Voxie. And I'm going to start with a brand called Waverly Swim. And I'm going to put on my franchisee hat here of the Waverly Swim of Brookhaven. And I'm not going to metaphorically put it on. I'm going to physically put my franchisee hat on here because you know what happens when a franchisee gets access to a new marketing tool, or what can happen. It can turn into the Wild West. So I'm going to set the stage for you at Waverly Swim of Brookhaven, suburb of Atlanta. We want to announce expanded weekend availability. So I want to text my leads and let them know that I have new Saturday and Sunday classes available, and they are fully open for enrollment. So in Voxie, I'm going to build a quick blast. That's what we call a blast campaign. And this will be a marketing text that I'm going to send to my leads. These are audiences that corporate has shared with me. I've got my 2025 leads, my 2026 leads. I don't want to reach quite everyone yet. I want to get my hottest, my most recently interested leads. I'll choose my 2026 leads. There's about 790 of them. And then I'm going to build my message. And this blank canvas right here is why I have this hat on. There is an open canvas for the franchisee to write kind of whatever they deem is appropriate, potentially without any guardrails. So you don't have to watch me type out a message. I'm just going to paste one in here. It says, "Hi, contact first name. Waverly Swim of Brookhaven is excited to announce expanded weekend availability." There's some emojis there. We've got minnows classes at Saturdays at noon, guppies Sundays at 1 p.m. It says, "You won't find weekend classes at Aqua Kids." That's Waverly Swim's competitor. "Interested in registration? Reply here." Good use of the two-way nature of the channel, and I'll help with questions and booking. So I'm going to go ahead as a franchisee, wearing my cowboy hat here. I'm going to hit continue. And what Voxie's brand standards are going to do is vet the campaign against Waverly Swim Corporate's brand standards. This contains checks that look for things like, are there emojis in the message? Because the brand doesn't allow emojis in text communications. It's not part of the brand, the way the brand communicates or represents themselves. The second piece is mentioning competitors, and this is where AI kind of enters the picture. Voxie has been trained on and prompted with the types of competitors that Waverly Swim doesn't want to be name dropping. They don't want to dish out this sort of competitor naming because maybe that's not the experience that they want to have for their end customers. So Voxie warns them. It says mentioning competitors is not allowed. Keep messaging centered on Waverly Swim's offerings, experience, and value. So I can correct this message. I'm going to get rid of my emojis here. Instead of saying you won't find weekend classes at Aqua Kids, maybe I'll say anywhere else and kind of generalize that a little bit. And then I can continue on with my campaign. So I will take my cowboy hat off. We are no longer in the Wild West, and we've got some control over what this message looks like and how it's being represented. Then I'll move through scheduling. I'm going to pick Friday. I want to get this campaign out before the weekend. You'll see I can't send this message at 5 in the morning or 11 at night. Speaking to TCPA and safe sending hours, corporate has dictated that marketing text can only go out between a tighter window than the general safe sending for TCPA. That's just 12 to 6 p.m. local. So I'm going to send this at 4 p.m. on Friday. I'll get a preview of that message. I can send myself a test. Voxie shows me how many folks I'm going to reach with this message and what that message is going to cost. I can schedule my message and then move on with my day. It's just a quick couple minute process. To speak to the two-way aspect of the channel, when I send that campaign out and my customers or my leads start replying because they're interested, that's where Message Hub comes into play. We have a mobile app. You can access Message Hub from your CRM if you're in HubSpot or something else. And what we show you is every message thread that's going on. So when I send this message out to Jane Doe and she replies, "That's perfect. I'd like to enroll my child in the minnows class on Saturday. When does this start?" From Voxie or from my CRM or from the app, from any place I want, I can reply to Jane, give them the information they need about whether it starts this week or next, and get them enrolled. So it's a great way to leverage the two-way nature of this channel on top of enabling franchisees to communicate locally, but doing so with that brand voice in check. All right, going to transition. Same platform, different philosophy, different brand here. I'm going to look at Cornerstone Subs of Decatur. So I'll switch over here. This is what more control looks like. So at Cornerstone Subs, I want to send a campaign about a sub of the month, a new promotion that I have going on. When I go to build my quick blast, when I go to tell my local audience about the offer that I have, I'm going to go ahead and select from, again, audiences that corporate has shared with me or deemed appropriate to market to. I can reach 1,700 local subscribers or about 500 subscribers who haven't purchased recently. I want to have big reach on this campaign, so I'm going to take all my local subscribers. Then when I go to write my message, you'll see that this is actually locked down. We have something called locked snippets, which means franchisees who are set up on locked snippets, they have to choose from the menu of pre-approved, pre-drafted messages that corporate's written. So when I hit the snippets menu, I'll see that corporate has sent or shared with me templates for a BOGO sub deal with some personalization in there. If I'm running a community event to support a local charity, I've got a campaign that I can send for that. There's a meal deal that includes an image and then a sub of the month text, which I'm going to send. This is pre-drafted, pre-written. I can't edit or modify what corporate has written for me, but I am prompted to fill out and kind of personalize this message. So I can name which sub is the sub of the month here. So I'm going to go ahead and put in the original Italian. I'm an original Italian guy. And I can see in the preview here that this will fill in our sub of the month is the original Italian, made fresh, worth every bite. And then there's a link to order online. After I go through, I can schedule this campaign. You'll see that there's a lot of days grayed out on this calendar. On Saturday, I can't send this on Saturday because the brand is running a national Saturday sub sweepstakes. And so they've blocked off sending messages that would conflict with the corporate marketing calendar. This is the sub of the month for April, so maybe I want to send this on April 1st. I want to get this out for the lunch day part, so I'll send this at 11 a.m. That's as early as I'm allowed to send that. Move on to the preview, send myself a test, make sure it looks good, and schedule that message. So let's talk about results, because results are where the money's at, right? I'm going to go to my local performance dashboard next. And this is where I'm going to see exactly how these campaigns are performing at my location. And this is where unlocking local is really brought to the next level. I have 71x, let me zoom in on that, 71x ROI on my local campaigns in the last 30 days. And this uses data from a Voxie customer that's been anonymized. And it compares that to corporate ROI, so brand-wide national campaigns that have been sent to my subscribers from corporate's marketing efforts. So you can see I'm outperforming corporate by nearly double. In the last 30 days, over $11,000 of revenue has been generated from SMS as a channel using a tight same-day attribution window, meaning I send a text, and before I close that night, someone with that phone number transacts at my store. Of that $11,500 in the last 30 days of revenue, about $2,700 came from corporate marketing efforts. Over $8,000 of that came from my local marketing efforts to my 1,800 subscribers. From this dashboard, I can understand things like for my campaigns, which campaigns had the largest attributed revenue. It was my free delivery text on the 6th here. That was a $17 campaign that had a 10% conversion rate with an 82x ROI. I can also see the types of campaigns and the sends that corporate's been sending on behalf of me to my local audience and see the ROI with that. So the final piece of really unlocking local SMS is enabling and ensuring franchisees can see where their dollars are going and how that's impacting their bottom line. All right, that's the franchisee view. And I want to show you what corporate sees really quick before we wrap up, because I'm realizing we're tight on time here. This isn't just a franchisee story. We want to show how corporate gets this visibility at the same level. If I'm the brand and I'm sending these campaigns nationally, I want to understand how is this performing at a local level? What story can I tell to my operators to show them that the campaigns that I'm sending, where their brand fund is sponsoring these campaigns, how is that impacting their local audience, generating revenue, and diving in at a local level? That's just half the picture, though. That's the performance. Visibility is also important. So last thing I'll demonstrate here as I move over to corporate is Blast Forecast, which is essentially your text marketing calendar. This helps you answer 3 core questions. Who is sending? What are they saying? And what is it going to cost? So from my text calendar here, I can see that there's a corporate marketing text going out to 300,000 subscribers tomorrow. There's a small message going out. Maybe that's a test message that's scheduled on Friday. I've got Saturday blocked off for the Saturday sub sweepstakes. And out on the 6th and out into the next month, there's some campaigns. From here, I can see who's sending, what they're saying, and manage their campaign, revert it to draft and communicate, let them know that I've unscheduled or canceled their campaign, or I could edit or reschedule on their behalf. So that's what Voxie brings to the table for unlocking local SMS. Full visibility into your program, full control over it, and gives you the full picture. And that's what unlocking local really looks like. So I realize we're about 1 minute over, so I'm going to keep it tight and wrap up here. Maddie, thank you so much for joining. We will be sending out a recording to everyone. Allie will send that out afterwards. But what is keeping your brand locked out of local? I'm head of product here at Voxie. I'm not head of sales. I would love to have a conversation. I would love to learn What is keeping you from being able to unlock local SMS? I'd love to connect and have a conversation. Thank you all so much for joining. Maddie, if you have any parting thoughts as we wrap up here, feel free to go for it. I'll hang on for just another minute here.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me. I'm happy to connect with anyone else as well on texting or anything. You can find me on LinkedIn. And yeah, I would encourage everyone to start looking at text as not just an add-on, but a true force of lead generation and getting more out of your current customers. Because we know that yes, leads are getting expensive, but they're also scarce out there. And so this is a great tool to get in front of people without telling them, go do more yard signs or go get to more meetings. Just meeting people where they are.
Yeah, absolutely. Once again, thank you so much, Maddie. Thank you everyone for joining. Hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thanks, guys.